Oki, and welcome to the information session for the Masters of Education webinar. We're delighted that you've all joined us today. My name is Mary Seaver. I'm the admin support in the School of Graduate Studies, and I will be facilitating today's Master of Education session. I'm going to start today's session with the university's territorial statement. Oki, and welcome to the University of Lethbridge. Our university's Blackfoot name is Aniskum, meaning Sacred Buffalo Stone. The university is located in traditional Blackfoot Confederacy territory. We honor the Blackfoot people and their traditional ways of knowing in caring for this land, as well as all Aboriginal peoples who have helped to shape and continue to strengthen our university community. Our format today will be a presentation followed by a question and answer session. Note also that today's session will be recorded. We will be adding the recording to the future graduate students website within the University of Lethbridge web domain, and only the presenters will have audio privileges. For the question and answer session, I will moderate the questions, and via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens, you can put your questions there, and I will read the questions, or your question will be read aloud for the participant, and the participant will remain anonymous. Questions will be asked in the order that they are received, but questions that are similar or are about the same topic area may be amalgamated. So joining us today is Dr. Chris Matatall. He's Associate Dean of Graduate Studies and Research in the Faculty of Education, and we will turn the time over to him and he will introduce his team.
I'm muted. I've only done this meeting once in my whole life. Actually, I do it every day, multiple times, and I should remember to unmute. Well, welcome everybody. It's good to see everyone here and have you here. I would like to start by introducing my team if I could. And as mentioned, I'm Chris Matatall. I'm an instructor here, but also the Associate Dean of Grad Studies and Research and Education. And I have a great team that I work with every day. So Kevin Mattis, you will hear a lot from him. He, not tonight necessarily, but if you join our program, he certainly gets involved in your life quite a bit, helping you. And he's our program specialist. And he also advises students on their progress to their program. Anna Mammo, who we don't see her image here, but her name is here, and she is our administrative assistant, and she does a tremendous amount of work in our office, helping us stay organized, doing a lot of the paperwork, and making sure that students are moving through their program, meeting their dates, getting everything done, passed in on time, and all the rest. And then also, last but not least, of course, is Susan Pollock, and she is our program manager. And at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Susan. Susan.
Great, thanks so much, Chris. So this evening, we're going to take probably about 20 minutes to go through a number of items, and then we will turn things over to question and answer period. And I just wanted to quickly point out the programs that we will be speaking to you about today. So this includes the Master of Education, okay, general. So we have 3 study themes within the MEd General. And tonight we're going to be focusing on the curriculum assessment study theme, as that's the next cohort that will be offered in 2022. And we will also be discussing the Master of Education with a major in educational leadership. So the topics for today, just so you can anticipate what we're going to be covering, we'll talk about the features of these programs. We'll talk about the topics that are covered within the cohort, the layout of the schedule for the particular cohort, application documentation that will be required, and as well we'll talk about admission requirements. And as mentioned at the end, we will allow some time for question and answer period. So I mentioned that at the front of this meeting because we do also have a Master of Education with a major in counseling psychology, as well as a Master of Counseling program. And we will not be discussing those. So if you are interested in those, Mary later on will add a link to the chat where you can actually register for those information sessions if that's something that you're interested in. So I just want to be clear what we are covering and what we're not today. So first of all, let's look at the program features. So particularly for, like I said, the MEd General with the study theme and curriculum assessment, and the MEd educational leadership, there's a lot of features in terms of what makes this a desirable program that you might want to undertake. And first and foremost for teachers is the fact that the programs are designed for working professionals. So our blend of online and summer residency components really makes that feasible. Obviously, completing a graduate program while you're continuing to teach is no small undertaking. So the program schedules have, they have incorporated the time and the sequence that makes that possible. So really, we're trying to find a way to allow you to balance a master's program and a teaching career at the same time. Right. Second feature of our program is that we use a cohort model. So what this means is that students are admitted to a cohort and they proceed according to the schedule with their peers. So students in each cohort really become a support network for each other. And this network we have seen last for years and years and decades beyond when they actually completed their program. So that's definitely a very, very strong asset for this program. As well, they're course-based programs. So the two that we're speaking of today, there's a number of courses, as you'll see within the schedule, and all of these courses are aligned with the field of study for that particular cohort, and they're taught by faculty members whose research is in that area. In addition to the coursework, you do have an option for culminating activities. So that includes a capstone, a project, or a thesis. While the majority of students in our programs, because they are working professionals, want to sort of complete the program in a more timely manner, they typically opt for a capstone. But if you are wanting to undertake research, then absolutely a project or a thesis is an option if you're interested in that. And even when you get into program, you may, even if you're admitted, you may not at the time of admission know that much about what the differences are, but we do, upon you entering the program, we have an orientation to what the various culminating activity options include so that you can make the decision that best fits your career path. So next, I'd just like to mention that it's an affordable program. So the fees currently are about $13,000 for Canadian students. Now, I'm going to put a whole lot of caveats on that it's, that's based on the 2021-22 fee calendar. That is the cost for the entire 2 to 3 program, but only based on today's dollar values. And that includes your tuitions, your program fees, and your miscellaneous fees. But again, another caveat, it really can depend on your personal circumstances and your program. So an example of that, if you opted in versus out for health and dental. So we'll give that as a ballpark for approximately $13,000 in today's dollars with the fees that we've got, in the calendar now, given the typical Canadian domestic student. Okay, so, and if you're wanting specific information about the fees, we can certainly send you to the fee page, or you can reach out to us about that afterwards. And the last feature of our program is that we have almost 40 years of experience offering graduate programs. So, 4 decades in, we've learned a lot. We've been offering blended programs for decades now. So this is something that is not new to us, and we certainly have learned and advanced as we went. And I'll just maybe provide an opportunity for Chris and Kevin if they wanted to jump in and if there's any features of the programs that I missed.
Well, one of the things that I think that really, we did a quality assurance review a few years ago, and one of the things that was featured in that quality assurance review of our program was the strength of the cohort model, and people talking about they join with a group of colleagues, professionals around the province or across country, and they become lifelong friends, and they can continue to work with them and collaborate with them. And they have relied on them through thick and thin over the years. And many of them, as I say, have become lifelong friends. So I think it's a part of the program that is a definite strength of our program that we don't want to overlook.
Great, thanks, Chris. While you have the floor, Chris, I'll let you talk the next couple of slides about the MEd General, and in particular, the curriculum assessment study theme that we're going to be starting next year.
Yeah, well, thank you, Susan. So this summer, starting in, I say this summer, next summer in 2022, we are beginning a new study theme under curriculum and assessment. And I want to read this paragraph to you. I know I don't want you to try to read it while I'm talking, but I'll read at the same time so that we can go through this bit together. Students in this cohort-based program are shown research-informed ways to design and enact high-quality curriculum. Now that is a mouthful, but our content area experts and our researchers here are on the cutting edge of what it means to develop and to enact or put into practice assessment practices and curriculum. And we are in a time right now in our province and in our country where this matters a great deal. So that was a mouthful, that statement, but it is so true that we have people in our program that can do that. I'll take you back to that paragraph just for a second. Starting with implement assessments that are authentically, meaningfully, and ethically informed teaching so that it can better reflect and respond to our diverse and inclusive communities. And more than ever, our communities are diverse. More than ever, our schools are diverse. And inclusive education is really a foundation of our education program now. And so working together with colleagues and under the teaching of expert researchers really does take you that extra step to be able to influence your workplace and influence the future of education. And that's what we're trying to do. Next slide. So we do start off say now is the time. And like I said, never before in the history of our province have we needed more teachers to correctly and wisely handle curriculum and assessment. And I think the time is calling for more people to get involved in designing, putting into practice, even challenging the way we teach and raise our children in schools. And so that's part of what universities are designed to do, is to challenge society and to build better societies. And I truly believe that this study theme in curriculum assessment helps teachers be better teachers. And in the end, it helps students. And so that's about.
Great. Can I move to the schedule?
Certainly. Yes.
All right. So just in case of individuals haven't looked on our website to see what what is the plan each year? How long is this program going to be? So the MEd General is a 3-year program. And how our programs work is in the summer, you'll be on campus for 3 weeks. So it's intensive. You take a couple of courses, as you can see here. So in July 2022, you would be on campus for those 2 courses. But what this allows is your fall term, so September to December, and your spring term, which we here at U of L is January till April. It allows you to take 1 course in each of those terms, and it's online. So it allows you, September till April, while you're still teaching, it's manageable to handle the extra workload. And in particular, this particular cohort schedule really does lend itself to having May, June off for, wrapping up your school year and year-end report cards. And you still have August off to take a break with your family and whatnot and prepare your classroom for the fall. So it is a schedule that we found has been very beneficial to students within these cohorts. So that really is the progression throughout the 3 years. It is the same rotation, and the only difference in year 3 would be depending upon which culminating activity option you selected. Either the capstone you would wrap up in that 9th term. If you opted for a project or a thesis, it is typical that you would take extra terms to complete your culminating activity. So that is something to keep in mind. Kevin or Chris, did you want to add anything else about the schedule?
I'm giving Kevin the opportunity here. I've said a lot of.
Yeah, for sure. I'll talk about it a little bit. From the perspective of where I work, I do hear from individuals considering our program about the potential to be able to go to school and work at the same time. And sometimes there's some hesitancy around that. And I just wanted to speak for a moment and just give reassurance to those that are watching this webinar that it is certainly something that's doable. We have multitudes of students that come to this program and succeed at it. So it might seem harrowing at first, or it might seem like it's a lot to put together, work in your work life and schooling at the same time, but it's certainly doable.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And I would just also mention, while you're completing the program is not the time to be taking on 4 different coaching roles and being a team lead on various projects, right? So it is realistic to think that you are going to potentially during this time frame have to scale back other things that you say yes to or agree to take on within your school or district on a volunteer capacity. I'm not sure if Chris, did you want to mention also the establishing frameworks, challenging frameworks, and
Well, all I'll say is
conceptualizing?
that this degree, this study theme is actually, it's really well designed. As you can see across in that light blue or that middle level blue, establishing frameworks, challenging frameworks, and reconceptualizing frameworks. What these researchers and professors do is they challenge what you know about assessment. They challenge what you know about curriculum. They start to then firmly establish what we know in history as good practice and what's in research, what's good practice. Then they will really shake things up with good critical thinking, helping you have the tools to really examine your assessment practices and curriculum practices, your teaching practices. And I'll just point that middle row across there. You see things like the nature of educational research, which will help you understand and read and conceptualize research and even think of developing your own. But all the way across the right, you see perceptions of disability and difference. And that is a course that a colleague of mine put together that really does challenge our whole world about what we think about disability and difference. And it really talks to about inclusion in around curriculum and assessment, and a brilliant course. And I really wish I could take this study theme myself, because it is fully taught by researchers, full-time, or I should say tenure track professors here in the faculty. All courses are, and they have taken great care to structure this this program to really challenge you and to make you think. And you will just be doing this all the time, like all the time, thinking about, wow, that was amazing. And I think you'll really enjoy this this program.
Great, thanks for that, Chris. So now we're gonna, switch topics a little bit, and we're gonna talk about the MEd educational leadership. And whoops, I'm sorry, I lied. We're gonna talk about what the future offerings are. So currently, so we're looking at the 2022 is July 2022 for the start date for the next intake. So tentatively planned after that is teaching, learning, and neuroscience for 2023. And following that, tentatively planned is multiple literacies in Canadian classrooms. And we typically cycle through these on a 3-year rotation. And Chris, did you want to talk at all about those 2 cohorts?
No, well, just to say that I teach in the teaching, learning, and neuroscience, and multiple literacies in Canadian classrooms is running right now by some of the leaders in the field. And I wish I'd brought her a book, but people like Dr. Robin Bright, and like these are the leaders in the field here in the province. So I can't say more than that. They're brilliant people.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And now,
sorry, I stumbled on my words on that just because.
Well, I failed you in setting it up. So next, now we are switching topics to the MEd educational leadership. So educational leadership is the major within the MEd. And, just a quick quote from one of our recent grads. So he said, "I'm not sure anything could have prepared us to teach through a pandemic, but I wouldn't be as prepared to lead others in this time without the reflection and practice that my MEd experience gave me." And that's something that, that reflective piece, I think, is really important within the leadership component. So I'm not sure if you wanted to speak at all about this, Chris, or if you want me to cover the leadership quality standard.
All I will say is this, is that I surveyed all the superintendents in Southern Alberta from Calgary down, and I asked them, what would you prefer, a master's degree and, I don't know, 2-course pack, which we have this 2-course pack that we offer, or a master's degree in educational leadership? And, several of the superintendents came back and said, the master's degree in educational leadership thoroughly prepares our leaders to be that type of leader in their school and even in the district that we really want. So this is a well-designed program that thoroughly prepares teachers or future leaders to be principals.
Yeah, and so a little bit different than the curriculum assessment in that this program is designed to specifically meet leadership quality standards. So in this particular case, bringing in other courses as electives or things like that is not an option because this is specifically designed to meet the requirements of Alberta Education's LQS. So the benefit of that is when you complete the MEd Education Leadership, we then, once you've successfully completed, we submit your name to Alberta Education saying this individual has successfully completed, and you essentially are given a check mark. You're ready to go. You have met the LQS requirement because we've worked with Alberta Education to ensure that this is a approved program. And I think I'll just mention one other thing, that this is, you don't necessarily need to be wanting to go into, you don't necessarily need to be thinking I'm going to be a principal. It does incorporate the leadership principles, even just to lead within your school, whether or not that's formal or informal leadership. So if you look at the program schedule for this one, it's a little bit different in that it's a 25-month program. So it is, think of it more like an executive MBA style program where it's a little more intensive, but the way that they're able to do that is they layer their internship. So they are, you're completing work within your school or within your district that you're utilizing within, you're reflecting back upon in your program. And so you're able to really synthesize things between your practice and the theory that we're helping you to develop. Yeah, so it's the same situation in terms of you having the options for culminating activity. So capstone project or thesis is an option for this. Kevin or Chris, anything you wanted to add? Okay, moving right along then. So now that you've heard about the programs, it's helpful to spend some time sharing the components you need to submit your application, and what are the minimum requirements. So we're going to switch to the nuts and bolts of what do you need to get in, and what pieces of information do you actually have to submit with that. So in terms of admission requirements, as you can see on the slide, there's 4 main elements that you have to have a bachelor or baccalaureate degree in a related area. So B.Ed is typically what we're looking for. A minimum GPA of 3.0 on the courses in the last, so that's in the terms containing the last 20 courses. So if, for instance, you want to calculate your own GPA, if a course was pass-fail, then that one doesn't count towards the 20 courses. And so you would go then to your 21st course and you take all of the courses. So whatever term you land on where your 20th course is found, then you would include that within your calculation. So it may be 20 courses, it may be 23 courses, 24 courses, depending on the schedule of when you took your programming. And you do also require 2 years approximately of teaching experience or other relevant educational experience. It is important to know that it is a Bachelor of Education that prepares individuals to be teacher certified. So if you're coming from another jurisdiction, a Master of Education is not actually going to certify you to be a teacher. So you must, in order to, candidates wanting teacher certification we'd suggest that you look at the Bachelor of Education program, because that is what is required in Alberta to meet teacher certification. So if you want to be a teacher, you must take a B.Ed, and then that would get you the teacher certification for Alberta. As well, if English language proficiency is, when you go through the application, there will be certain questions, and it will lead to indicate whether or not you need to provide proof of English language proficiency. So if that's required, then those are the minimum admission requirements. And I should also mention that in the educational leadership program, preference is given to applicants who have leadership experience and or demonstrated leadership potential.
And I'll just add to that, if you are coming from a jurisdiction outside of Alberta, please do, if it'd be a good thing to check with Alberta Education, and they will direct you. Just ask, I want to find out about teacher certification, to find out if I'm qualified, and they will direct you to the proper branch to find out if your credentials meet the Bachelor of Education degree in the province of Alberta. So if you're hoping to come here and be a teacher and get a master's degree and continue on here, you should do your homework first.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so if you have, reviewed, you've heard about the programs, you think this is something I want to apply to, you figured out which one works best for you, and you've looked at the admission requirements, and you know that you at least minimally meet those requirements, then it's time for you to start putting together your application. So the application is completed online, so it is an online system that you will log into, and really, if you have these pieces that I'll go over in a moment, if you have these pieces ready, the application itself is probably only going to take you about 10 to 20 minutes. So first, you have to upload your academic transcripts. So this does include transcripts for every post-secondary institution you've attended. So if you went to Athabasca University way back when and you took a single course, you still need to submit a transcript for that. So please do keep in mind, even if it shows as a transfer credit on another transcript, you must submit the official transcript for each and every course. Okay, we do require 3 references. So it is worth noting that, it's 3 professional / academic. So many individuals have been out of academia for decades, and they just have no way of getting an academic reference. So if you've been out in the field as a teacher for 20 years, it is perfectly acceptable to submit 3 professional references. Okay, so we do often get lots of questions about that. So yes, it is acceptable to submit 3 professional references if an academic reference is difficult for you to obtain. A little bit more about the references. So you don't actually need a letter from the individual. So what will happen is within your application, you will enter the contact information. So preferably the school district email address, or the university for an academic reference. So preferably those kinds of email addresses, as opposed to a Gmail, Yahoo, things like that. And you will just indicate the individual's contact information and their name, and they will be sent information on how to log into the system and to complete the survey that is essentially your letter of reference. Okay, so no need to make them actually write a letter, but please do notify them in advance so that when that email is prompted to them from the system, that they are expecting it. And please do also allow several weeks at least for people to complete. Okay, so if you're going to submit your application at the very last minute, we do need to allow your referees time to go in and complete, or your application will be considered incomplete. So that's something to make sure that you give them lots of time. Once you're in the system, you will see there's a little button that says submit to reference, or to recommender, I believe it is. And when you do that, when you click that button after you've input the information for the individual, that is what sends the email to that individual. And at any time you can actually go in, and you, within your CollegeNet account, you can see whether or not the person has started. You can send little reminder nudges from within the system. So please know that all of that is available within your application system. All right, so next you will need to include a letter of intent. And this is just going to outline your interests, your intended career outcome. 1 to 2 pages is sufficient. Please don't be submitting, former thesis documents or things like that. We really want it to be concise in terms of why do you want to take this program, and how is it going to impact your career? What are you going to do with it? What's the benefit to the field for you taking the program? As well, you will include a CV, so essentially a resume that may include any publications that you've completed, and if it's required, then your English language proficiency scores or proof of ELP may be required. Kevin, did you want to add anything about admission requirements or application documentation?
No, I think you're It's pretty good. However, I just want to emphasize that the transcripts that you upload to the application can certainly be unofficial. So you don't need to
Yes.
have officials to upload to the system. So if you have an old copy of a transcript in your filing cabinet from 20 years ago, as long as it's complete and shows all your results, you can upload that for your application. You don't need to have a brand new official to do that.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Great reminder. And there will be an official transcript that is required if you're admitted to program, but the application, the admission review will actually happen with your the receipt of your unofficial transcripts. All right, so next bit, when to apply. Well, the application's open. So, please feel free to go and commence your application. It is open until December 1st, but we do recommend that you don't wait until the end, start to get in there, make sure that there's no technical issues, allows you time to reach out to us if you have questions about it, provides extra time for your referees to submit. And I will mention that if you are, for instance, somebody that is local and has taken, maybe the B.Ed from the U of L, our faculty members do get inundated with numerous requests for references to be submitted. So the sooner you do this, the more time they will have to put into thinking all of the nice, wonderful things they're going to say about you in your regarding your reference. So leaving it to the last minute is really not doing yourself a favor in terms of how it's going to work out for you in the end. So application deadline December 1st. We must inform everybody by April 1st, but typically it is the first week of February that we inform individuals. Okay, and as noted in the schedules, it was a July 2022 start date. So really, we're going to turn it over to questions. I do actually see, Mary and Kevin, just so you know, I actually can see the chat. So I do see that there's a question regarding how many students are admitted in a typical cohort, and Kevin has addressed that within the chat, but it is approximately 20 students that we take in per cohort. Okay, anybody else have questions they wanted to answer?
So we have a couple questions that have come in the Q&A. Several are coming in now. Can you see the Q&A, Susan?
Yes, I do. Okay, so the length of the July term, so that is 3 weeks. So summer session 2 is a 3-week period that you're on campus. And so, we do have accommodation that's available. So if individuals, in some cases, people have relatives here, sometimes they use an Airbnb, you can certainly stay on campus and utilize the accommodation that we have here. Chris, I'm going to let you answer this question. So is there anything in particular you are looking for in your students?
Yes, that's a good question, because as you could see through what the requirements are, you need a grade point average, but that's not the only thing we look at. We do take seriously the letter, and we do look at candidates as to fit. And by that, I mean, let's say we have 40 applicants for 20 seats. You don't usually have that in the general, but if we did, then we would look at your grade point average course. We would look at your references. We would look at your letter of intent. And if your references said, oh man, Chris is an incredible student, he's a great thinker, he's a hard worker, that's the type of stuff we're looking for. We're looking for somebody that wants to come here to learn, wants to come here to work hard, wants to come here to succeed, make a difference, all that type of stuff, as you can imagine. And sometimes the things that your references say will set you apart from everybody else. And I can't even give specific examples simply because we get such different responses every year, but there will be certain differences among people where we know, yeah, this person is studious, this person is serious, this person is willing to put in the time and the effort, and they're willing to work hard. So that's the type of characteristics we look for. Great,
thanks, Chris. There's a couple of questions here regarding transcripts that I'll just sort of blend into one. So one was about the if you completed at the University of Lethbridge. So we do still need you to upload your unofficial transcript. So you will do that by logging into the bridge and obtaining that. So nowadays it might be Bear Tracks, wherever you attended your your undergrad, that post-secondary institution, typically speaking, there's there's electronic versions, and so you can reach out to your post-secondary institution, check their website, and look as to how do I access that information. And sometimes you can sometimes you have access even though you haven't attended in a while, and other times you have to reach out to them to actually get that established. So again, one more reason why we don't want you to delay submitting your application. And the other question related to transcripts was about, do I need to submit a transcript if it's something that's continuing education? So continuing ed is not considered, it won't be considered in your GPA. So, I'm not sure if, for instance, U of C now has continuing ed. I'm not sure if that actually displays on their official transcript if there's another section for continuing ed. But if it is something that you've taken strictly as continuing ed, then it won't be included as part of your academic background in terms of admissibility.
Although sometimes we like to know what people have been involved in, because it does build interesting people, like when we hear that people have, I volunteered overseas for 7 years in Guatemala or wherever, we go, whoa, that's really cool. That's interesting. And it does paint a picture of the applicant. So.
Yeah, and that would be something that is more applicable to your CV, I would say. We don't actually need to have a, official record that you've completed it, but obviously that would be something that you want to, I completed these particular courses.
In the case of something like a certificate in adult education, sometimes your educational institution where you completed it may not be able to issue you a transcript. In that case, there is an opportunity as an additional document for you to upload a copy of the certificate, for example. So we could just have that as part of your application.
Kevin, can you answer the question in the chat from Blessing Aguilar?
Yeah, for sure. Fees. So the question is about fees being paid in installments before or within the duration of the program schedule. Fees in our program are not paid up front. They're paid on a term-by-term basis each semester in which you complete courses. So for example, our program is 12 courses in length, and you would pay 12 tuition fees alongside other fees for each particular term in which you take the class. So yes, you'll be paying semester by semester throughout the program rather than all at once at the start.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm going to ask you to maybe fill in the blanks after me. So there's a question about, international students applying for programs and the fact that it's blended delivery. And yes, so the bottom line is, yes, this does affect your visa process, and it affects, I can't recall off the top of my head, the ability to stay after the degree is complete. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you to fill in the blanks on that.
So when we're talking about attending the campus as a blended program, in that particular case, you'd be looking potentially at being granted a visa only for the periods of the program which are on campus. So I know that there may be an opportunity for you to apply for full attendance, like a visa for full attendance of the program, 3 years, even though maybe the program has components that are online. But we have been told by the International Center here on campus that there are situations or cases where they may just permit you to have, for example, a visitor visa for the duration of your on-campus components, and you would study online from your home country for the remainder of the program. So.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Hopefully that answers that question. There's a question, Chris, I'll leave that for you about reducing.
No, I'm not. I don't mind if you do.
Okay. So one of the questions was, is it typical for teachers to reduce their load from, say, a 1 to a 0.8 FTE? It does happen sometimes, but it isn't required, as long as you're able to ensure that you're not taking on, you may need to limit your other responsibilities. So for instance, coaching or things that are additional to what you're just doing in your regular teaching career. Like, what do you need to do as a teacher as opposed to all of the typical volunteer activities that teachers take on? Having said that, if you feel the need, if it gives you space to feel like you're more comfortable in doing that, then absolutely that extra 0.2 time would, certainly make things a little bit easier to balance work, life, home.
And I will just answer Chris's question. He wants to know if courses, if we still plan to do courses in person next summer. And of course, we can never predict the future, but our intention is, yes, we would like to have that cohort start in person next summer. So that's our intention and our hope. But again, we have to always add the caveat in there that we honestly don't know. Who knew where we didn't think we'd be online this fall. And so our plan is to be in person, yes. Another question in the Q&A there. There is a concern that the November 1st session for the MEd Counseling Psychology program is cutting it a bit tight when the application is due December 1st. Is there any way to offer that session earlier?
I can answer that, Chris.
Yeah.
So we do have things scheduled so that, honestly, a month is plenty of time to allow you to submit. You can go ahead based on the information that's in the, like on the website. We actually have the previously recorded session, which is very similar to this. So watching the counseling session that's pre-recorded will give you an idea about what's up and coming. You can also reach out to Kevin or myself, but if you go and you get all of those pieces of the application ready, so if you have your LOI, you have your your transcripts rather, you have your references in place and you've thought about all of that, then really and truly after that session on November 1st, it shouldn't take you much time after that to finalize and get things in place.
Can you answer that other question there too, Susan?
Oh. Okay, do we prioritize onshore students over offshore students when selecting applicants? So no, there is no preference. It is really, it's who's best suited. It is typical that an individual, so an international student wanting to come and complete this program, the program is not designed for you to come to Alberta to complete your internships, your practicum placements, things like that. So if you're an international student, it's designed more for you as a teacher in another country to come take the summer session and then go back to where you're teaching and complete it in that manner. So unless you're already, teaching in Alberta or in Canada, and so it's intended for people who are already teaching, if that makes a difference. So regardless of where you are, it's intended for people who are already teaching. Like as an example, we've got an international student in one of our programs right now, and that's exactly what they're doing. Like, they're out of the country and they are teaching in their home country, and they're using this degree to improve their teaching in their home country. So hopefully that makes sense. And I'll leave it to Kevin to, provide more sort of international language from the calendar.
Yeah, no, I just, we typically get a question or two about this, whether we have a quota for international applicants or whether we have a quota for mature applicants. We just look at applicants on the whole by their academic abilities and their work experience. We don't usually use that as an indicator of qualification is their citizenship.
Great. Well, I don't see any further questions. I'll give people a couple of moments in case there was somebody else who wanted to add something. And again, it's still sharing screen. If there's something we missed or you don't want to have it read out, please do feel free to email us. So edu.masters@uleth.ca, or our contact information is available from pretty much all of those websites that we've listed there. And they're also in the chat for you. No more questions. So I guess we just say a huge thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time to come out and listen to us and learn about our programs. And Chris, is there anything else you wanted to add, or Kevin?
No, I echo those. Oh, the light just went out. I echo those same comments. That we thank you very much. And I know I'm in the dark here, but I got to kind of wave the lights to get everything going here. But Kevin, anything else?
I think that's pretty good. I always just like to emphasize if you have questions that weren't covered in the session, or if you have specific questions that you don't think were worth asking at this session, you want to get more of a direct answer, you can always contact me. I'm here to answer your questions.
Great. Well, thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks everyone for attending. I guess everybody have a lovely evening, and thank you for presenting that information.